Hello, and welcome to another happy edition of Happily Ever After, where everyone's relationship is great, there's no drama, no shitty behavior, and really just the epitome of healthy relationships. I'm Jack, and joining me as always is the Blighty Day Bay herself, Michelle.
Hi, folks. Can't wait to recap this episode of 90 Day Fiancé Happily Ever After, Season 8, Episode 12.
Titled Pornocchio.
I'm surprised they were able to use that because I'm sure, and I don't want to look it up, but I am sure that title has been used many times.
In a couple of unrated features.
Correct.
Oh, as we're getting started here, my overall thought watching this episode was that married people watch Happily Ever After to feel better about their own relationships. Any thoughts?
I don't know what you're talking about. My marriage is
I didn't say anything about my marriage. I'm just speaking about everyone else's marriage out there.
sure. Yeah. We're sorry for you all.
People with perfect marriages can speak, you know? So, where are we going to start today? Who do you want to start with? We have quite an action-packed show and a lot of lows, and I'm not sure too many highs, but I'm sure you and I can find a couple.
It's funny you say that because after watching the episode, immediately after watching the episode, I was like, not much really happened. But it wasn't that not much happened. It was that it was kind of like a single emotional note the whole time. And that can sometimes feel a little bit like me, I guess.
Are you
If you just
talking
so
are you talking about how each couple was sort of dealing with the same stuff in this episode?
I mean, the familiar beats are there, right? We know the choreography. We know I spend money, he doesn't. We know you're trying to control me. No, I'm not. The sex is shit. We know if only he would change and be a completely different person, then our marriage would work out great. We know these things. And we don't, by the way, cover Patrick and Thais just because I'm not interested. There are plenty of other shows that cover them and don't cover some of these other folks. So I
On this
figure,
show, a little reminder for everybody, you do get Big Ed Liz coverage on this show. None this week, but in general, we do cover them.
and Michael and Angela.
That's right. That's right. So we're here for them. If you need Pat and Thais, plenty of other options.
Yeah. All right. So who did you want to start with?
It's a menagerie of fascinating people here. Let's start. You can say no, you can decline this. I would love to get Angela and Michael out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start.
Fantastic. And what I enjoyed was the Skyla reappearance. I have not seen her in quite some time.
Yeah, she's not the one that went to prison
This is true.
for things that I would rather not mention
And we're
for
going to
some
not
of
mention
our.
them today. You all have Google. Go check it out. So we're jumping in, and of course things are not well in the world of Angela and Michael. We start with Skyla on the phone with Angela, and of course, Angela's. It's a little new here, so try and keep up with me. But Angela thinks Michael's a liar, so that's like breaking news. So no, and actually, absolutely nothing new is going on, and my take, for fuck's sake, why is this still a storyline? I do not understand it, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
Because now we got her daughter on the phone who's going to back up everything she's saying, and she's going to say, Michael's a liar. I seen liars on TV and I know how it works. And the reason the visas having trouble coming through is because he went to their offices and he lied to them. I just know it deep down inside, Mama.
Skylar, you call him Michael a liar?
Somebody's got to tell you the truth, Mama.
And the fact is that Michael claims that all he's doing is trying to move to the U.S. to be with Angela, which is fascinating because I've never seen someone so determined just hit speed bump after speed bump, and none of them are created by Michael. None.
No, this was when he told her, or sorry, when she told him. And look, I'm not saying that Michael is a universally wonderful person or
Certainly not.
that he has not been a bad actor in the past or that he hasn't lied to her or that his motivations are completely pure in this marriage because I don't see how they possibly could be. On the other hand, when she told him that if he has to go to the bathroom, he needs to, quote, hang it out the window, it's just another. The language that she uses with him is so dehumanizing. And I do sometimes, when I'm in the mood for overthinking things and I really want to horrify myself, I wonder whether she spoke to her children like that growing up.
Do you think that Skyla would? Well, I guess I was going to say, do you think she'd have the relationship she does with her? But I'm not sure how terrific that relationship is. It's just they are tight. But I guess you can always be tight with your mother, even if she was a horror show when you were growing up.
I don't know. I think Isla has a lot of children. I'm not sure if she has a partner. That's never really been amazingly clear. I'd like to think that my that were I in that situation, my mother wouldn't dare ask me for one of my eggs so that she could do IVF with her partner who's 20 years younger than her. I don't think there's a lot of good, healthy boundaries in that relationship. I'll put it that way.
All right, well, I have to make a phone call and call my mother and stop something from happening right now. But that's a different matter. When we pick up with them, Michael is leaving the gated restaurant area, and then we have Angela and her George Washington wooden teeth standing in front of the gate, chain smoking, like she's like the gate guard. And then Michael comes over to try to speak to her. So, you have any thoughts about this quick interaction, which is unpleasant and nasty as always?
I was watching a show last night, and there's it's like a crime drama, and the surviving victim of this like serial rapist and murderer
See, a
said,
little light watch for you before bed.
yeah, to decompress after watching stuff like this. Um, and she said, she was asked what her relationship with her husband was like because she was kidnapped and sexually assaulted. And she said, I don't hear the words he's speaking. I only follow the tone. And that's how I can tell whether he's happy or upset with me. And I respond accordingly, but I can't,
So let me ask, off of that, tell me what you read. What do you get off of this tone? If you were just following something and not listening to the words, but you just hear,
what I'm saying is I've stopped. I don't hear the individual words. I do sometimes, like, when she tells him to hang it out the window or whatever, but it's all the same to me. It's this like pleading sound coming from Michael, and then just this like, what's it called when you'll know this because you're a film school guy. That scream that everybody used of like a guy falling out a window? What was it called? It's not like Wildenhammer scream, but it's something with a W. Do you
oh,
know what I'm
geez.
talking about?
Yes, I do, but I'm blanking on the term. Yes, I know what you're talking
People
about.
are screaming. Let's just call it the Wilford Brimley scream. Um, that's all I hear. It's just noise. Because if I try to listen too intently, then I literally get triggered. Like we were joking about the last time we recorded about having to take a Xanax, but I really did.
Well, see, that's what happens with this show, and that's why I was saying that, it's something that anyone can look at, and I do mean anyone can look at and feel better about their relationship because 99% chance your relationship is not as fucked up as any of these people on this show. 99%. Can't give you 100% everybody, but 99%. So going forward, the one major point between them in this episode is Michael moving the visa interview after claiming that it was moved on him by the government, and we don't really have a clear answer, but I think we need to investigate a little bit.
Do we need to investigate a little bit? Like,
No, I think you're. Go ahead.
why does it matter? This is a nothing argument over nothing. This is her being mad at someone else and taking it out on him. It's like it's similar to the conversation. Actually, you know what? It's not similar at all. It's distinct from the fuck up that Gino did with Jasmine's kids visa
Mm,
application.
yes.
Um, because in that case, Gino didn't consult a lawyer. He didn't run it by anybody who knew what the fuck they were doing. This is a very complex area of law, certainly in the UK, certainly in the US. You really, really can't do it yourself. Trust and believe. And so that was him being reckless as to the outcome. Or thoughtless, if we're being generous. He
Sure.
just wasn't thinking about it. Michael had a specific goal to move things forward. And he was hoping that, I mean, I've done that plenty of times. Like when I would have to get my visas, there were several places that I could do it. And I could go to the one, I went to the one that had appointments, right? Like,
Yes.
why would you not? It wasn't necessarily the one closest to my house, but I would look at the center that had the earliest appointment and I would go there. What fucking difference does that make?
Well, that's what I was thinking. And then, what is Angela's problem, though? What do you think she's concocting in her head that Michael's doing?
Uh, I would say cheating on her with someone at the embassy in, it's not Abuja because they're not in Nigeria, but it's wherever they are in Ivory Coast. I'm really
Yes.
sorry. I'm terrible at remembering places like that.
We're gonna close up Michael and Angela here, which is
Yes.
so the thing is that which I just wanted to talk about to wrap up with them is that when Angela confronts Michael or starts kind of like raising her or really just showing lack of patience and just sort of like getting tired of him. This is always with him, but it stood out today. I haven't seen them in a little while. Um, Michael just kind of sits there like a scolded child and just starts taking it. He doesn't really speak up for himself. He doesn't defend himself, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's exhausted of defending himself and he just doesn't really have anything else to offer. There's, of course, the other side of the token there, which is he actually lying? Is there anything going on? And then let me turn the coin straight up so I can say the third side of looking at it is who cares? These people should not be together and should stop talking to each other. And for that, I am shocked. You know, you and I have talked a lot about these people trying to monetize something while they're on the show. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like Angela and Michael have monetized nothing, and I'm not sure that they've improved their lives apart from plastic surgery for her.
Well, free plastic surgery isn't nothing. And
But
she does well on Cameo, I'm sure.
what about Michael?
Well, he gets some of the Cameo money.
You think so?
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't want to what I want to leave off with is I'm thinking about all of the times that she's been emotionally, psychologically, and physically abusive toward him on camera. She has punched him on camera, slapped
Yes.
him, thrown drinks in his face,
Yes.
done damage to his car, his property.
Oh, it's the car. I forgot about that when she went down there with
Yeah.
a friend and broke his nice car. Oh, yes, of course, of course.
So I can't help but think, and I'm sure you and our lovely listeners have thought this too. Would we put up with this if the genders were reversed?
No way, because if all we have to do is take the Big Ed Liz story, and I'm not going to go down anywhere dark with that, but look, everyone hates Ed. If Angela was Ed, I think it and Michael was Liz. I mean that might be a tough example because everyone hates both of them, but I feel like that might be the closest thing we could get there to prove your point.
I think what you're skipping out on is that I think most reasonable people hate them. Most people with hearts and souls hate them, but they do keep getting brought back for a reason, and it's because they're both great for ratings. I don't know who these people are who like them. I'm not sure what their lives are like outside of watching 90 Day Fiance. I don't know what they get from it. But yes, most healthy people, I would say, hate them and maybe don't want to watch any kind of intimate partner violence on TV. It's not entertainment. And every time it gets shown, and actually, they're, I think, more or less done with the show, but I can say the same, lest you think that I'm, being misandrist here. Nicole of Nicole and Mahmoud was also emotionally, psychologically, and physically abusive toward him.
Of course.
And we saw it, and we're just expected to act like that's normal,
Well, and
accept it.
that is that issue, and I want to say issue. I think that's the happenstance on TV when it's a quote unquote fragile woman, right? And when I say fragile, I mean physically fragile, right? Nicole's a small woman, and you have Kamud, who is a man. So when we watch stuff like that, I don't think that the woman's place in that type of thing. Really, I think the easier way to say it is I don't think that the audience wants to go that deep into it. And I'm always a little bit surprised when they kind of go there on this show because they're not going to get like a even look. It's not the same. It's not okay, well, if a guy's doing this, he's off the show. You can't there's no one who stays on this show more than one season who's like horrifically verbally abusive and weird to their female partner. That's not something that we see last more than a season on this show.
Except for Big Ed.
You just really pointed out the whole kitten caboodle, which is that Angela is a version of Big Ed. And therefore you could look at Michael as a version of Liz. And then where is anyone having fun with the story at that point?
That's a good point. The other thing I wanted to ask you, as someone else who's worked on set before, is what do you like with, I don't know how familiar you are with Real Housewives, but
Oh, I've been
I
forced to
always,
sit through many an episode.
okay, well, I hope you got a good education from it, because that's another topic for another day.
That's a
But
different
I
show,
always,
Michelle.
yes, it is. It's a different show. It's a different topic for another day. So I always think about how on that show, everyone's excuse is like, oh, and so was on the call sheet, for that day. So when you're preparing to do a shoot, whether it's reality TV or anything else, you have to do a
Hmm.
risk assessment, right?
Yes.
Um, what do you think the risk assessment looks like when they're filming with Michael and Angela?
I mean, if you were to look at her behavior over the course of all the shows they've been on, I think the risk assessment is very clear. I mean, in one word, the risk assessment is Angela. But to a further extent, it's Angela potentially physically harming Michael. And I think that that would be something that you really have to be set up for.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like I know on Love After Lockup, they typically have a couple of heavies just in
Yes.
case, to protect the crew and the cast in case something kicks off. And I know that I'm sure the law I've never worked on a production in the US, but I'm sure the law is the same there as it is here, or
I will
similar at
just
least,
jump
where
in and
like,
tell you one thing, which is when I was working on The Voice, we had, there were a lot of contestants and fans and everything. So, yeah, there were, let's just say there were security people who were unmarked and sort of hiding in the background, ready to spring into action if necessary.
right, as you should with any show where there are crowds, right?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, um but so here, particularly if you're working on like a very low budget production, it's enough to have somebody who's trained in first aid. You don't need a full medic. I feel like Angela and Michael have to have, I mean, I'm sure for a show this big, you have an on-set medic, right?
Angela and Michael need a triage team ready to
Yeah,
go.
that's what I was thinking. Like, I think there's an ambulance parked outside, particularly when they're, um,
There is not an ambulance parked outside. There is a medevac helicopter parked outside.
like every time they go to a restaurant, they're like, is there a helipad nearby? Where's the, I mean, you have to do where's the nearest hospital, right? Everyone does that. But like, we need, we need to make sure that if someone gets knocked the fuck out, that we can get them to a real hospital.
And for the record on that, because the person who gets knocked the fuck out in this scenario, it has to be Michael. Because am I wrong? Tell me if my memory's wrong here. Has Michael ever done anything physically bad to Angela?
No, no, I don't
Like,
think
I
so.
don't recall him ever acting in a physically violent nature.
No, I mean, he's rearranged her guts, but that's
That was consensual.
that was consensual.
Now, I feel that that is a terrific place to stop. We just gave you a really awesome image of Michael and Angela. Now, where do I go from here? I think I'm going to
Should we get
choose.
Kobe and Emily out of the way just because it's a really, really quick one and it's
Yes,
not super serial?
yes, that's a great idea. Emily
Okay.
and Kobe in Cameroon waiting for Mrs. Goodbar, Kobe's ex girlfriend.
Waiting for Mrs. Godot.
There, more accurate.
Or I should say, it's actually waiting. Actually, it's waiting for Godot.
Did you just actually me? Well, actually me?
I did. I
Fair
did.
enough. We'll allow it.
I had to,
So,
God, yeah.
what?
Anyway,
Go ahead. No, come on. You have a digression. Go ahead. Go for it.
no, I don't. It's a totally unnecessary one that's not even entertaining. Yeah. So again, nothing new happening here. We're just revisiting the same points as before, which is basically that Emily wants something. And when Emily wants something, she is going to get it regardless of how anybody else might feel and or think. And she just wants it, so she's going to have it.
Do you remember? I wonder if Emily can chime in here and tell us about maybe having a beach day attached to this day today. Emily, are you there?
Yeah, it just seems like a really, it just felt like the most important thing to do was really spend what little time I have with my husband in a once in a lifetime trip where we're getting married according to his culture, just at a day at the beach, confronting his jilted ex fiance. I just thought it would be a really good idea.
Thank you so much, Emily. Put your tongue back in your mouth. What I loved about that exchange is Kobe's immediate response, which is, "We can't have a beach day when we're meeting my ex." I think he had a good point. I'm not sure how that's going.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, where's the beach day starting? Before or after?
At least somebody is thinking that there's an actual human being involved in this exchange, right?
Absolutely. As opposed to, hey, can you get that woman who you cheated on with me and impregnated me? And can you get her over here so I can find out if you cheated on her with me 5 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, we've already been through that. We talked about that in the last episode.
Yes, we
So
did. And yeah, I
let's
mean, there's not, yeah, I think they're really, the only other thing I just want to mention, because this was the one thing that happened between them here, apart from waiting, was this place that he takes her to is a famous lover's spot in town. And she asks him if he took that girl there. And my immediate thought was like, Emily, Kobe took every girl he ever dated in that village or town, excuse me, to that lover's spot. So I don't know if you really want the answer to that, Emily.
the other thing that I wanted to mention was that Emily was like, sorry, it takes me a minute to get into the mouth feel. Emily was like, "Oh my god, is that girl bringing her? Is she bringing her friend with her? Is she bringing a friend with her?" Y'all, of course she's bringing a friend with her. Why would you not bring a friend with? This is your ex-fiance and the woman he married instead of you, and I gather abandoned you with absolutely no explanation, and you had to find out from other people. This isn't an insignificant length of a relationship either. Weren't they together? I think they said they were together for 7 years.
Yes, and
That's
also
not.
that involved, and that was long distance. That was Kobe when he was a
Mm-hmm.
model, and he was in China and other places. So yeah, that was a serious relationship that sort of fell by the wayside because of Kobe, falling not by the wayside.
Well, it was be falling straight into a howling vagina that was desperate for his seed.
The last thing I'm going to say about them is when Emily says, "Which one is she?" And I didn't get a good look at either of them, but Emily, it's whichever one bothers you more. That's the ex. Right. I think next we should move on to Lauren and Alexi in Florida.
Yes. And let me preface this by saying, like we said before, not to belabor the point, we're going to talk about the geopolitical issue that's been presented here only through the lens of the people on the show and the conversations that they're having and what we're seeing. So they're talking about Alexi's family in Israel, how they're feeling in Florida, their own personal lived experience, and we're restricting our commentary to that. If at any point there's more stuff that comes out that we feel that we should speak on, we will. But for now, that's what we're doing. So we're not ignoring other perspectives or pretending that they don't exist. We just think it's best for you, the listeners, and best for our mental health if we just stick to what's being portrayed in the world of the show.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that that is an excellent thought process on that. And so, with that being said, this does pick up about a week after things started going awry in the Middle East. And Alexei is home watching CNN, even though they tried to blur it out. It's not blurred enough. And he's watching CNN and he's talking to us, the audience, and his family for that matter, but he also has some voiceover in there. And he's just expressing, especially, as with his mother and brother in Israel, he's expressing
Without
the,
his dad being there as well,
of
because
course, and I should have
his
said that
dad's in
first.
Florida with
Yes,
them.
his dad is visiting and just happened to
Who,
be visiting when this went down.
again, sorry to lower the tone, but his dad looks like he's hasn't flown in from Israel. He looks like he's flown in from fucking Margaritaville.
He's in Hollywood, Florida. What do you want from him?
That is just the vibe. It's like it's that or the Grateful Dead, and I know, of course, there's an overlap there, but I he looks like such a parrot head to me, and it's so weird because he blends in perfectly in Florida, but it's just funny that while all these grave conversations are happening, he's wearing these kind of like psychedelic shirts and
And wasting
or
away to
vaguely
Margaritaville.
psych. Yeah, exactly.
So, in other words, though,
Except, except, except,
yeah.
you're gonna love me for this. No cheeseburgers in paradise, obviously, because you can't mix the milk and the meat. That's the only.
It's a kosher joke, everybody. And as we're talking about Alexei's father's presentation, what is he talking about? Something so much more fun than wearing Margaritaville type shirts. He's talking about being glued to the news, and then they call the mother and the brother in Israel, who, seem a little rattled. This is the beginning of everything happening, and they're talking about got the bomb shelter ready, you got enough food, you got enough water.
Oof. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Were they just because I only watched it once and I just sort of it was first thing it was early in the morning.
We are trying to get you this episode on time, folks.
We were, yes, and thank you to cousin Dan in advance. Were they weren't speaking Hebrew, were they, to each
No, they
other?
were not. No. I
Yeah,
think they
they
were
were.
actually, I think they were just, were they speaking English? Or was it Russian?
No, I think they were speaking Russian.
Yeah, no, I'm trying, I had titles on. But yeah, no, you're right. They were speaking Russian. Because I always forget, are they from Ukraine or Russia?
I think they're from Ukraine.
But yeah,
And
but
if
Russian.
Ukrainian is its own language, which I think it
It is. There's a
is.
whole thing. I read up about this on one of Natalie's seasons. At the time I was reading it, just hey, since this is the war portion of the podcast, I'll just say Ukrainian was kind of very limited for a long time during the Soviet Union era, and Russian was spoken in a lot of Ukraine. And
Sure.
believe, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe that there's a push to bring the Ukrainian language back up to number one over there. Feel free to write to me if I have that mistaken, please.
And speaking of which, you can get in touch with any of the Blady Day team via email, bladydayfiance at gmail.com. Just put in the subject line who it's for. Instagram, Blady Day Fiance. Facebook, join our group, Blady Day Bays. Blady is spelled Blighty. Bays is spelled Baes. And best of all, our Patreon, patreon.com/Blady Day. We'd love to have you there. We've got 3 tiers. It's all killer, no filler. People at the $10 tier will get video, and people at the $15 tier will get to choose the weekly bonus episode. We might throw in some extra treats for everybody now and then. We're doing sort of a series where we interview each other about our favorite music. That goes to everybody. So, yeah, not that much money. We're dancing out here for shekels, and we welcome whatever you can manage. But just by listening, you are family. We love you. We thank you so much.
So now you and I have talked about that we both, we think Alexei is a good husband, good father.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, now we see, and we've seen this before, but also a good son and a good brother and all of this stuff. He's a good guy. And I think what will obviously probably happen is I think we probably would have heard if he had gone off and joined reserve military duty somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that he did not, because I feel like that probably would have been leaked by now. I think that what's interesting, and again, no matter what the situation is, anywhere in the world, anyone going through this situation, anywhere, obviously you'd like to go be there to protect your family in a war zone, and you'd like to go defend your country. Um,
May I ask
yeah,
a potentially stupid question? Because I'm not particularly clear
all
on this at all.
questions are equal opportunity here, Michelle. Ask your stupid question.
Okay, so question number one: did you personally do a birthright trip?
I did not. I would have liked to, but I was a little too preoccupied in the States at that time. But I have been to Israel, just not on a
Okay.
birthright trip.
Um, and is it true that if you go on a birthright trip,
I went out with
you
a few
can?
girls who went on birthright trips, so I do have answers to these questions.
Okay. Uh, is it true that if you go on a birthright trip, that that then qualifies you to be in the military? Because military service is mandatory for Israeli citizens,
Yes,
right?
as far
But
as I know it, you're never put into the Israeli military system unless you are an actual Israeli citizen. Like we even hear Alexei in this say that if he was still there, he might still be considered a reserve, but he's not a citizen anymore as he moved to America and relinquished that citizenship. So I don't think so. And let's see, what else do we have on them?
so
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
And again, not to lower the tone, but if we're not laughing, we're crying, right? Do you remember
Yes.
that? Do you remember the moment where they like I I think it was Alexi's dad opened the door to the boys' bedroom and there's just this like velociraptor scream.
I think and look, that's the split there within a house. You have the adults looking at extremely serious stuff in one room, and you have Tyrannosaurus Rex children in the other side of the apartment.
Um, unless you have anything to add, I'd like to close with a misogynistic joke.
I think that's the only appropriate way to close these two out.
Okay. Well, you look into Alexi's eyes sometimes and you can see the full-time job that he's working while supporting a wife who is temporarily incapacitated and going through a recovery journey from her surgery with three children under the age of three.
Three under
And you
three.
hashtag three under three. You can't help but think there had to have been a moment where he thought, would joining the war be so bad? I mean, would it be worse than it is now?
I could get away from my mother-in-law. I could get out
Ugh,
of here.
who continues to be the absolute fucking worst.
Now, I do have to say, and I don't like to point out the passage of time on this show all the time, but last week it looked, I believe I famously said, Lauren looked like an elderly person who fell down an elevator shaft and then was not
Yes.
brought to the hospital, was just brought immediately back upstairs. How much time has passed considering she now looks fine and the surgery was super successful and she looks great? Is this like 2 weeks? Or what do you think?
No, I think it's probably longer than that. I think Alexi and Lauren probably wisely said having a full camera crew and the in-laws and the kids and all of that is a little bit much right now, and I just need to be able to, like, for those of you who now I haven't had major surgery, but I have broken bones before and had to be on painkillers like long term. Painkillers make you really weepy and exhausted, and it's almost, in some cases it can be not worth it almost. I think uh maybe those cases are few and far between, but it just does, it's just a horrible feeling. It's not nice. I don't I should say, especially for somebody like me, I don't tolerate opioids well at all. They make me really, really sick. And when I had a broken pelvis, I had to take them because the pain was worse than what I got. But I was a bit like, and this isn't a flex, y'all, but I was a bit like, I know I don't have to pay for this, and that if I was in America, even with insurance, this would cost like $1 billion. But like, I really miss being in the US where I can just ask for a specific painkiller that I like and then they'll give it to me.
Can you give me one that's a little lower, please? I don't want as much pain knocked out.
No, it's not even that. It's like there's some. All right, that's gonna trigger people. I'll just say that
We'll have a
I've.
separate Patreon episode on drugs coming soon.
Have you had your wisdom teeth out?
I have.
What was that experience like for you? Trigger warning, dental stuff.
Dental stuff, I will say I had all four done at once. I was late high school and wasn't that bad for me. I was on some Vicodin, I think, for like a week. Didn't swell too badly. I know that's not exciting. I had a pretty uneventful wisdom teeth removal.
So
I take
I
it you did
had.
not have an uneventful wisdom tooth removal?
So I had. I thought it was going to be more like. So my nose is real for anyone who's asking. It's the one that I. It's the one that I was born with. I'm very lucky in that department. But I did have a deviated septum that needed correcting. So when I was 16 and all you need to hear is me snoring at night to understand what this is about, because of course I have to have the surgery again at some point in my life. And I, anyway, having my deviated septum corrected, I was awake the whole time, but I was basically, they basically put you, they put like liquid cocaine up your nose.
I'm just making
And
this. No, oh, sorry, everyone. You can't see
why are
this
you
unless
making
you're
that
on the.
face?
I'm making that
Yeah.
face because I had deviated septum surgery, not a nose job, my real nose here. But I had deviated septum surgery because I couldn't breathe out of one side of my nostril, and I was getting really bad headaches, and it was the only way to fix it. But I was not awake. That's why I was making that face. I was out.
Oh,
That was the
I
face.
I was in sort of a
Twilight.
twilight sleep. Like they didn't put me under, and again, massive trigger warning if you can't deal with blood and stuff, just fast forward for a minute. I could I could hear the sound of my nose being broken,
Ow.
but I couldn't feel anything. But it was a nice experience. It was a little bit weird, and my sister came to pick me up after the operation and took me home. And I was wondering, I was like, my mom is really quiet. Like, why is my mom so quiet? It's really creepy.
Yeah.
And then later, my sister said to me, she was like, the absolute filth that was coming out of your mouth after that surgery. And I was like, what did
Out
I
of
say?
your
And she's,
mouth. You didn't have
yeah,
any memory of this.
no. And I still, to this day, to this day, she will not tell me what I said.
Was this directed at your mother?
No, 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 no. It was, I was just talking. I was just like,
Okay.
like
Incoherent.
incoherent to me, I guess, but I was so high. Like I was on so much coke. And not that I've ever done it recreationally, but it tends to, I hear that it tends to make some people verbose, shall we say. So I assume it was something to do with that. Anyway, not a difficult recovery. Percocet in good measure. I was fine. Wisdom teeth, totally different story. I was under when my wisdom teeth were pulled out. I was in horrific pain, and yeah, I thought it would be more like my very smooth and wonderful sinus surgery, but it was awful. My face was so badly bruised. It took forever to heal, and the painkillers weren't as good, and they made me cry all the time.
Everybody, welcome to Doctor Radio. You don't know Doctor Radio? No Doctor Radio for you?
No.
That is a very popular Sirius satellite channel.
Okay. All right. I wouldn't know. I've never never had Sirius.
Either have
Anyway,
I. I've just famously worked at the Howard Stern Show on Sirius. So
you
with
worked at
all
the
of,
Howard Stern show. You never mention
I
that.
never do, right?
You never talk about it. It's so weird.
I think.
I think that's worth a humble brag.
You think so? I don't like to humble
Yeah,
brag too
that's
much.
isn't he like the most listened to? Isn't that
Used
the
to be.
most popular show? Well,
Yes,
yeah.
for a very very long time. When I was there, it was at the beginning of the Sirius satellite thing. It was when Howard Stern was uncensored for the first time. So might get a bonus episode with stories from the Howard Stern show in the future.
Ooh, we love those. We love uncensored celebrity gossip.
Plenty.
Mine is my celebrity stories are always really lame. It's either like, yeah, I bumped into this person, they were really nice to me, or I bumped into this person, they were a complete asshole. They tried to finger bang me under the table, and I was having none of it. But I won't say who that was. Anyway,
All right, Michelle. I think it is time for Ashley and Manuel. And my first comment. I'm not trying to lead this one, but apparently, Ashley has a much more professional way of saying what she does for a living than mi trabajo es bruja.
yes, apparently so. I also wasn't aware that she had such I mean, I'm not surprised because she's clearly a very intelligent woman. Um, but I'm impressed that she has 3 qualifications. That's a lot.
And now, just tell us, if you can, what did Manuel say about her 3 degrees and how they work in conjunction with what she does for a living?
Well, I believe he posed a question
He did
and
post
then
it. That's fair. He answered it
answered it
himself.
himself. And what are you like? He sounds like my mother-in-law. Like, and what are you doing with those degrees? Nothing.
Well, I think, and now let's back up a second just to set the stage here for them. So this is following up from last week. This is Ashley and Manuel going to see a, as he put it, a divorce lawyer about putting together a post-nup, the famous post-nuptial, which means everything's going fucking fantastic. All coming up aces for these two. So they're, and you can jump in here if you want here, but I just wanted to say, I think that the sexual magic of arguing every second, never talking about anything, and then just fucking until you felt better and didn't think about it anymore for a little while, I feel like that little magic carpet ride is coming to an unceremonious end for these two. And I don't mean the marriage is over, just mean that portion of it feels like it's maybe lost its luster. How do you feel about that?
Well, as I said last week, if your kink is fighting and fucking, there are better places to go than a law firm. I really just as someone who in her professional life, such as it is, specializes in divorce and this kind of thing. I've never done a prenup or a postnup for anyone before, but you do, because it's a really personal event in someone's life. It's like a wedding or a funeral or a birth. It's a huge life transition. It's a huge moment. And I'm very lucky in that I seem to be able to engender a sense of trust and confidence between my clients and I do get a lot of details about relationships and what might have gone wrong. And so you do, when you work in family law, you do kind of have a dual role in a sense, because you have to have that kind of, at least at the level I'm working at, you do need a certain emotional strength and
Mm-hmm.
ability to empathize and also to not take on the things that you see and hear, because sometimes it's it's really rough. There's rarely any such thing as a nice divorce or a nice breakup of a long-term partnership, where especially where kids are involved. um,
No, you're saying
and
that in
not
general, this is not a happy-go-lucky time for people.
No, it isn't. But I guess what I was leading to is I can see why Ashley would think that this is the appropriate person to sort of talk about all the trust issues in your relationship and whatever else. And um, until you're getting divorced, that's maybe not true. And this isn't, and bland white lawyer said it himself. This isn't the place that you come when it's too late to work out
Yes,
these problems. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I was working my way to that quote because I think that was. I hope for. Well, I don't know because I don't know. It depends how I'll see how I feel about it when we're done with this conversation. But that's either a very good thing for them to be close to that, or a very bad thing. It depends on how we take these stories as they unfold.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also loved, I think the star of the show was Manuel's anger translator. He was really putting the passion behind all of his arguments. I mean,
you
it was like underscoring it.
You had said earlier before we were recording that you really thought he did something that most interpreters don't do in that situation, which is become an anger translator and really get the emotion behind everything. And I mean, I think that's really important because in this case, and I may have my suspicions on how much English Manuel knows, but in this case,
Mm-hmm.
let's,
Mm-hmm. I've always
let's
thought that.
He's a little too reactive sometimes to have no idea what's going on. But that's maybe that's a story for a different episode. For this one, now I will say the interpreter made a impact on me, or an impression, I should say, immediately because I was really. So he comes in and he puts on his UN style earpiece to speak to Manuel as everything's going, and I was curious because I was like, okay, the guy's sitting like 3 feet away from Manuel. So are we going to hear this guy? No, this guy is a star. This guy's a superstar with what he was doing. And, you couldn't hear him. He's translating perfectly. And he's translating perfectly because Manuel was responding like he never has on this show before. I think this was the first time we really, because the shock and awe, so to speak, that Manuel seemed to be feeling during this was palpable.
I couldn't agree more. So in many ways I'm glad that this is where they ended up, because I think we got to see and again, we're hitting some of the same beats over and over, but I think the tables are turning on Ashley in a way that she hadn't predicted. I know that, for just from observation, that as sort of, and as a tarot reader myself, and someone whose side hustle is in the sort of esoteric arts, people have assumptions that, like, oh, you're very free and easy and airy fairy and you're a go with the flow type of person. Like, no, this whole, if you're drawn to that field to begin with, it's because you need to know what's going on before it's going on. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And you need constant reassurance. And it's something that, hopefully, actually, my practice has really helped me let go of a lot of those tendencies. And it's helped me let go of a lot of that sort of need to know what happens all the time. But this is a lot of debt. It's a situation that many people of our generation are in.
Hmm.
I've been extremely lucky in that I've only have credit card debt, and it's not a crippling amount.
Likewise.
Yeah. So,
So
uh,
but obviously, this is a place that a lot of people, especially in this country where I am, are dealing with. And especially people around Ashley's age are dealing with this. And of course, we're talking about the reveal that Ashley has $100,000 in debt. And I don't, stop me if if you think I'm getting too far ahead here, but the the whole issue that these two have with Manuel's secrecy, and they can't talk about anything, and she doesn't feel like she can ask him questions, and the whole rigmarole going around in a circle like a snake eating its own tail. It's kind of like delicious poetry in a way that it turns out Ashley actually had $100,000 of hidden debt. And it takes going to a post-nup discussion for Manuel to even find out about it and get information. So that just really hit me a lot.
that's a straight up, like, box with a star in it in Super Mario, like, for Manuel.
The
That's
ultimate
beyond
power
a,
up.
yeah, that's the ultimate power up. That's not even a one up.
And, I mean, this it becomes they go quickly into he's worried about her overspending. I of course had the thought that I'm sure most viewers had, which is how much of this debt is Starbucks related and crystal related and all of that, and then it turns out none of it. That's separate debt. The main debt is the college loans, and
Well, I
yeah.
mean, to be fair, anyone who goes into a business is going to be operating at a loss. Like, you do have to, most of us, unless it's handed to us on a
Hmm.
silver splatter.
Splatter, a silver splatter.
Why did I say silver splatter? What?
Because we're talking
What?
about a DOA marriage, and all you can think about is someone splattered.
I guess so. I mean, geez.
That
Anyway,
was
unless
grim, Michelle.
unless a business is handed to you, and you know what, I felt this very deeply as an elder millennial too, of like, we we always get heat and criticism for not saving our money and not planning for the future and avocado toast and the rest of it. And I'm sure you've all heard this before, but in case you need it, like, I'm in solidarity with you, with all of y'all. I've never owned a home. I've never even come close to being able to own a home. If I ever do, it will, you know, I'll probably, at least at this stage in my life, I would need help from my mom for a deposit, like many of my friends have had. If she were able to give that to me, it's these, it's the fucking candle making and the avocado toast and the coffees that you treat yourself to so that you don't grind your bones into dust with stress, anxiety, like, and I do think that that's something, I'm not going to say it's unique to our generation, but I think it's
Hmm.
something that boomers categorically can never understand or relate to because that's not the world that they grew up in.
You're 100% right. I mean, look, I myself could point at Ashley about the specifically the coffees, and I don't mean the bullshit about if you guys stop buying your $5 lattes, you could buy a house. That's bullshit. That's not true. But what I will say is I used to go to Starbucks and stuff all the time, and now I go sometimes because PSA for everybody, if you buy iced coffee, you are literally wasting too much money. It's the only time I'm going to say this. Go make your own hot coffee, pour it into a glass thing, and put it in the refrigerator, and then you have iced coffee for like a couple of days. And it's a lot cheaper than what Ashley's doing. But I'm going off of away from your point, making a silly comment there, which is all of this to say, look, Ashley has, let's call it necessary debt. Okay, if
Mm-hmm.
she she became highly educated, and yes, of course, Manuel's funny, bitingly, and mean, and throwing shade at the fact that she doesn't use her degrees at all. But I think that's sort of like, I feel like she got caught in a spot there. I don't know why she went in kind of like not prepared to take heat for hiding $100,000 debt. But at the same time, I mean, because talking about, she mentioned she's an entrepreneur and she's a businesswoman. And I do think it's really important in any marriage, and certainly a marriage that is a little, let's just say, not the strongest between her and Manuel. It makes all the sense in the world that she's there in the first place to protect any assets that she has, and her business is her asset. And I think that's important. But I think what becomes murky for me in this whole exchange is that we have the whole season between these two is Manuel's secretive, Manuel's an asshole, Manuel needs this, Manuel won't tell me what this is for and that. And then to see that she's been holding a secret back also just made me feel, I think, and I hate saying this because I thought they were so fun in their first season, it just kind of takes the future probability and like really lowers like the percentage that I think they're going to end up happily ever after.
It's a big, it's a big secret. And for someone who talks constantly about transparency and honesty and authenticity in a relationship, you pretty much chopped off your own, your, why am I immediately going to chopping something off?
Keep it
You're
clean.
you're hoisted by your own petard there,
Yes. Yes.
you
And,
know.
absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think maybe and I don't know, tell me what your take is on this, but like, I feel like where Ashley got kind of knocked off balance a little bit, she knew what her debt was and she knew that was going to come up in this. I mean, she's not an idiot, right? But I don't know that she was prepared that she was giving Manuel like a fully loaded bunch of excuses to kind of throw at her, because he immediately just starts attacking the spending habits, talking, and and this is something he's wanted to do since, at least since that candle making class, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
But again, it just occurred to me because we've said over and over, and I, far be it for me to beat a dead horse.
Never.
They're incapable of understanding the other person's perspective, and now it's gotten to a point where they're incapable of like having any respect for the other person's perspective at all, in the least, in the slightest. And I do think that part of that is because in the moments that Ashley feels that she's being vulnerable and transparent, what she's actually doing, and I don't think she means to do this, I think this is a survival mechanism that many women who have been in tough relationships have had. It is she's manipulating emotionally rather than being authentic and vulnerable. And
Can you
so,
tell us a little bit? Just tell me how you mean that exactly. How is she being manipulative?
okay, so for example, if he, and I can't cite a specific conversation because I can't call it to mind right now, but often what happens is she'll say to him, literal mente, you know, with the secrets that you're keeping, they're really triggering for me because what I went through with my dad. And fuck, maybe she actually never has said that to him. I feel like they've had the same argument over and over, but she'll say something about what triggers her, what gives her anxiety, and she could phrase it in a person, right? Not her, because I'm
Hmm.
not, it's not for me to police anyone's tone, but a different way of saying, you can't talk to me like that because it triggers me. I'm not having this conversation because it's triggering to me. You can't go anywhere near this because I've told you about my exes and I don't like this kind of behavior. Another way of saying that, or another way of presenting that perspective, is saying, I feel I'm feeling really fearful and vulnerable right now. I'm really uncomfortable talking about money. I'm scared that if I don't give you money, you'll leave me, even though me giving you money and you not being forthright about where that money is going makes me feel used and ashamed and gives me anxiety. Because she's done it the one way for so long, the sort of defensive way, for so long, and been mocked by Manuel, I don't think, and I don't have great faith that the result would be any different. I'm not going to
Hmm.
lie, because I just don't, I think that he has that kind of, I don't think he can access that side of himself, even if it's there. Like, he clearly has empathy for other people. You know, he loves his kids, he loves his
Hmm.
family, he looks after them. But the way that I think what I'm saying is they both have a hand in how they speak to each other about money.
So this whole issue and incident, or not issue, there's many issues. This whole incident of going in for the post-nup and finding out about the loan debt and all of that, it gives Manuel an opportunity to really, really attack Ashley's spending habits and her supposed inability, seeming inability to save money. And for me, when Manuel for me, so he's hammering on the spending habits, he's bringing up the coffee and everything, but he hit a new level of stardom on this show when she was saying that she saved some money, and he just looks around and he goes, Donde? Donde? Where? Where? Where is it? Please. And she walked right into it.
I know. I couldn't believe that, but it was fucking hilarious. It was up there with the prayer that he that he had in the hotel room in Queens, or wherever it was, when
Yes.
he's like, God, just send me a piece of bread.
That's true. I forgot about that for a second. So he's had a few fantastic lines this season. If we look at him more as an actor than a married person with their marriage falling apart, he's been really entertaining from the actor angle.
Yeah, he's brilliant TV. They both are. They both are.
And before we wrap on them, I just obviously this is well-trodden ground here, but okay. Ashley agrees to help Manuel's family and help him out sending money before they get married. Okay, and until he could work, of course, let me say that. So we're still in the phase where he can't work yet. So I think it rankles me a little bit, like for any of these stories, when someone literally can't, literal mente can't work yet, and the and the significant other is like, what the fuck is your problem? Why aren't you working? And it's like, I don't have a green card. And they're like, oh. And then it always feels like they're doing the thing where they can't really say it on TV. And it's like, but can't you get one of those jobs where it's under the table in cash?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why aren't you showing up to construction sites and just saying, I'm here. This is
And
my daily rate.
I'll answer that by saying, I would imagine, even though it's not super high, I think the daily rate for being on Happily Ever After might be a little higher than hanging out in a Home Depot parking lot.
And a lot more legal.
Exactly. I don't know that Manuel feels like involuntarily going back to Ecuador. So I don't know that he's going to do anything like that on
No,
TV.
no.
And so basically, so we end where we have been in a sense, with the snake eating its own tail, of that Ashley doesn't want secrets, but is keeping them herself. So, we are just, I don't, this is why this show is like a little bit painful sometimes for me. I mean, painful to watch or cover, but just like we get to these points where, and I know we're middle of the season, so this is like the midway point, right? But
And you just
it's,
get the worst blue balls. Like, you've just been hard for so long.
it's more like I've eaten one too many Oreos, and if I see another Oreo, I'm going to throw up. And that's sort of
Right.
like this show with the marital discord and the lying and the same bullshit.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Do you have
I
anything
totally get
else
that.
you want to touch on with these two before we move on?
No, just that I'm just so grateful for the little moments, the exchanges that they have. And again, not to be a total bummer, but like, it does feel like the cracks are starting to show, and not enough jizz in the world can plug it back up. Do you know what I mean?
Now, just for the record, everybody, I'm in LA and it's okay to talk about jizz at 4:20 a.m., but it means that, Michelle, you're talking about it's the late morning, early afternoon. Where's your head at?
I know, it's bad. I was just thinking, because the last episode, actually, I think we may have cut it out, but maybe we didn't. We talked
Your
about
filthy
how,
talk? I think we cut down on some of your filthiness in the last episode.
first of all, pot kettle. Second,
Fair.
we've talked about their relationship in terms of uh like something that needs to be an empty well, or a donut that needs more cream, and the cream is what holds it all together. And all I was trying to do was be consistent in that motif
So you feel
by,
that the fragile bones of their marriage are being held up by cum. Is this the
yeah,
assertion? Okay. I
yeah.
can't disagree with that, but you're saying that they've now used all the cum they can ever use to fix this, and maybe they might need a stronger substance at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a point where you go, um maybe some caulk, for example.
Now, everyone, she did say caulk with an L, AULK.
Yes.
You got to tell the people what you mean sometimes, you know?
I know. You have to be my American translator, because I've just spent too much time abroad, you know? It's like,
What a worldly gal you are.
I know.
And
I
with
can't.
that being said, we're moving to your neck of the woods, sort of, for this next couple. Because
Okay.
we're going to move to, and I said your neck of the woods, sort of, which will make sense when I tell you we are going to Rob the Knob and Sophie.
Right, poor Sophie. She's just having a favourite. glass of wine with her best friend and possible lover.
Yeah, no, I was going to say her best friend that's totally not interested in her at all, and there's nothing going on there.
Nah, no. She's definitely not waiting for the day, biding her time. I I'm I'll put it this way, I'm pretty sure Sophie ain't contributing to the rent.
Oh, well, it's yes, 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 yes. I would say 100% not. And so, yes, the next question inevitably is, how is she making up that dividend?
These segments like this usually just make me angry. Like normally I just have one emotion when it's Rob and Sophie. Um and certainly Rob's friend is hot. He is neither funny nor insightful.
That would be
Um
Tarai, I believe. Is that how you say
Tarai,
it? Yes.
yes. Yeah. Very good looking. Maybe not the best choreographer in the world, or at least not of airport dances. Although, to be fair, I think Rob was hamstrung by his complete lack of talent. Um,
It just slapped him in the face.
but it's this idea. I was really annoyed at Rob's segment of this because I felt like he was acting as though that's something that had never occurred to him, when in reality, I guarantee you that's one of the rods that he, metaphorical rods that he beats Sophie with on a regular basis. Like, there is absolutely no way that he hasn't accused her of coming over for a green card time and time again. So to present this as kind of where he does his like, yo, I never thought of that, you know?
Where his
Like,
his mock shock.
yeah, the audacity of like, whoa, I didn't even think of that.
Tarai, you're telling me all like amazing things. You're opening up my mind, man.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
kind of
fucking
the
with my head. Yeah, it was got me spun all around. So we hear it from him that he's not planning on staying in Austin, that we are perhaps we have come to the end of the road.
well put.
Thank you. The other half of this, Sophie's half of this, actually made me really emotional. It really made me sad because she was talking about him like he was dead.
That's an interesting way to take it. And we should say this is also 24 hours of real time, according to the show, since Sophie left Rob's, and they have not
Mm.
spoken in that time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the first time where like there's been a sea change, I feel, in how she looks and talks about the relation looks at and talks about the relationship. I fully expect the pendulum to swing the other way, half an hour after they filmed this.
Right.
But what I found particularly poignant was the fact that it wasn't like there was that moment of clarity where she's going from, oh, I wish you could see this side of him. Like when it's just the two of us, it's so great. And he's so funny and charming and caring, to it used to be this, that, and the other. He used to be so charming. He used to get along with my friends. We used to make each other laugh.
Now, I will say we have not gotten any like on screen confirmation of any of these things happening
No, no,
in the
we've never
relationship.
seen that. We've never
Right.
seen any chemistry between them. Um, which I'd love to get your insight on that.
On the fact that we've never seen it. Yeah, no, that I don't know if this is like a real relationship. I'm not questioning anyone's preferences or sexuality or anything. I am saying that this feels like just feels like obviously a lot of people have said this, but it has the vibe of two influencers trying to be on TV, and it doesn't. I don't even feel like they fucked since she's been here, and I'm sure they
Yeah.
have, I guess, but like I can't picture it. And even with the other couples who might hate each other, I can picture it. I mean, we've seen it with some of the other people, and these two, it just seemed like from day one, it was just shitty. And And I just want to just before we go into Sophie's thing, the last thing Rob said before we kind of left him and went on to Sophie and her mother and her friend is, and I'm saying this only because it was the first correct thing Rob possibly has said, which is that this feels like a bad boyfriend girlfriend relationship and not a marriage. And I was thinking, I guess not an engagement either, man, because like you didn't leave that, you didn't say that one. And it just seems like you guys hate each other. So,
Yeah. I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
or a knob.
Sure, if the knob tells time. I think you're missing the point.
I think you're right. But no, but your point is
Bless you.
good.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. You are the bravest of brave soldiers when it comes to scheduling. We always mean to start much earlier, and we will do that tomorrow, but inevitably, life gets in the way on either end. But I'm getting better at waking up earlier, so
And I'm getting
we'll
better at
start
staying up
earlier.
forever. So, but now, am I sounding too much like my Angela impression?
No. No. I was just thinking it's weird. I was thinking about the fact that like I can't imitate your voice at all. Like I don't I wouldn't know. And most people I know well or who I've spent as much time talking to as I've spent talking to you, I can do kind of like a vague impression of their voice. I couldn't do an
Folks, if you
impression
want to
of
hear a
you.
bad impression of my voice, let us know and we'll make that happen. Now, moving along with Sophie and Rob. So then we're at Kay's place. Okay.
Actually, I could do an impression of your voice, but it would be really unflattering.
For you or me?
For both of us, probably.
Is that something you want to try and you'll cut it out if you don't like it?
I don't think it's fair to cut it out. I think, if you shoot for the king, you better not miss, right?
All
And
right.
and that's
Shoot
all.
shoot
But
for the king.
if I was if I was trying to do an impression of you, it would be something that sounds nothing like you, saying things like you never said. And all I can think now is like, yeah, New York has a huge subway and it's got letters and numbers.
If you want me to kind of talk like this, I can just break it all out and just throw it all on the table.
I'd have to make you really angry first.
You know what, guys? I'm just going to appear as Angela next week if this is how I'm going to be treated on this program.
Like I said, it doesn't. My impression of you sounds absolutely nothing like you.
You sounded
Uh,
more like Cookie Monster or Oscar the Grouch.
sure, it's like my impression of Robin doesn't sound anything like him either.
Oh, I've heard your impression. It is not accurate. But
Nope.
hey, when you're the one doing the impressions, you're calling the shots, right? It depends if you have an annoying co-host who's going to hold your feet to the fire.
That's one way of putting it. Actually, you're the host in this case, which means you're supposed to keep us from getting derailed.
Oh, I'm
So you
trying,
better
guys.
start
If
doing your
if you
job.
could, if you heard all the editing that gets cut out and me saying, "Hey, let's keep going this way," I have Tarai speaking the truth about how they don't fuck, and he was, and
Mm-hmm.
it was telling because you know whether you hate Rob or are indifferent to Rob, like I think we could all agree Rob probably wants to have sex. Like I think that's a fair assumption for this guy.
For To that point,
Yes.
for two people who I think probably met on OnlyFans and
Right.
who both make their money. I mean, I don't know about Sophie, but I do know that that's Rob's source of income.
I've
Um,
just heard on a certain podcast way too many times about Rob's
his
asshole being
butthole,
visible.
yeah,
Yes.
hmm,
Excuse me,
yeah.
butthole. I made it more gross. Excuse me.
I think butthole is grosser than asshole, but we'll have to do a poll. Y'all go to Instagram and I'll try to get on uh, X also and Facebook. What's grosser, butthole or asshole.
For the
I think
actual
but
physical body part.
what's a grosser name? Yeah. And you know what? For fun, I'm going to put arsehole in there too.
You have to. That's where you are. You're in the land of arseholes.
True.
And now, okay, so we get into and then we get is she trying to stay in the US bullshit and all of this. And, and I think this relationship is so inauthentic that I have trouble digging myself too into this. Oh God, is she trying to stay here for this? It doesn't seem like she's trying to stay here at all, honestly. Like, I don't see that.
No, and it's kind of hard because on the one hand, I really sympathize with her, because she's from the part of London that I live in, and she's like lots of girls who just don't know what's next in their lives, and I can relate to having got married very young and made a mistake, and just not knowing what's going to be next and just feeling horrible about it all. But at the same time, I'm like, you have, whether I'm speculating here based on nothing apart from context clues, that her grandfather maybe has never paid taxes, maybe is has a business that isn't entirely legal.
We're saying it doesn't show
But
up on the tax records, folks.
no, I'm not.
Okay?
I'm speculating that
Excuse me,
that's
allegedly.
thanks. We'll put you in charge of legal, shall we?
Definitely not qualified for that.
No.
I can just tell you
And
how to get in trouble.
as my husband is very happy to remind me very frequently, yes, I do have a law degree, but that doesn't mean I'm never wrong. So
Try
with that,
podcasting with her, folks.
you feel the pain now. What I'm saying is that Sophie may have had a very difficult childhood, and certainly a difficult adolescence. Hashtag Narcanning mom, allegedly. What we what we do know is that materially she's comfortable, and she herself also has the means to kind of probably live anywhere and work from anywhere. And I don't think she's that, the fact that she left LA at all, right, to me
Yes.
says she's actually like definitely not there for the green card. Fucking, and I'm speaking as the world's foremost Anfisa apologist, because I think she is the most glorious being ever to grace our televisions in the history of 90 Day Fiancé. Anfisa wouldn't have gone to Austin.
Right. You're saying
And
she would have. What are you
that's not
saying?
a
Would
knock
she have
on.
home, or are you saying she would have just stayed where she was because it's where she wanted to be?
I'm saying she would have found some other rich guy who was either in New York or the LA area. I mean, George was in Orange County, which is very different, but
Yes,
maybe
but
to someone who
similar
doesn't
concept.
know Southern California, it's the same thing, right? It's adjacent.
Hey, for the record, sports makes this really confusing because the Los Angeles Angels play in Orange County, which is an hour south of the city of Los Angeles and not in Los Angeles County. So go figure. And I'm going back to Tarai for a second because he said something that I really want to make a t-shirt out of. So we might have to do that at some point. This to me
Okay.
was, this was my favorite quote tonight, which was, this is a green card play, fam.
How did I miss that?
I think you were kind of not paying attention to Tarai too much. As you said, you didn't think he had a lot to offer. And now you missed this gem of a comment.
No. I mean, again, he is very easy on the eyes.
Good looking man.
Lovely to look at. I don't necessarily take his personal insights particularly seriously. But now you've said that, I think we could do, a bridal line. We could do little like matching hoodies that say,
It's a
have
green
that
card
slogan
play,
on it.
fam.
It's a green card play, fam. We could do track suits. We could do makeup bags. I think this is a great idea.
It sounds like we could really outfit Brighton Beach or certain sections of Los Angeles here.
Amazing.
And and Rob, I don't think this is like real, but Rob's sort of mumbling about like, I don't know, I have hope, I have hope. And Tarai gets really fucking incensed at that. He looks like he wants to slap Rob, be like, bro, what are you talking about? What hope? Your girl is living with another girl, man. What are you doing?
Any other thoughts on them before we close?
Are we going to talk about them and just not mention Claire the mother at all?
I don't think Claire was saying anything new or unique. I do think it's worth saying that if your mother says to you, you should learn from your mother's mistakes, you might be a parentified child.
We might have an extra episode about parentified children. That is an interesting
Yes.
phrase I've been learning a lot about recently. I'll mercifully close them out in a second, but I do just want to bring up Kay for 1 second, the friend who's definitely
Mm-hmm.
not her girlfriend and definitely not someone she's doing anything with.
I actually wanted to say something about her as well. So, but you go first.
Sure. I just wanted to. So Kay was completely just lapping up whatever Claire was saying, Sophie's mother, and to the point where, so corny, but to the point where I was thinking her name should be Kay. See, corny. But what she did say, which really stood out to me based on my slight alleged thoughts here about them, is Kay points out, or Sophie points out, and it wasn't Kay, sorry. Sophie points out to Kay, um, we don't even need men. And I feel like that really,
Sophie said that, or
that's
Kay
what
said that?
I have it written down as Sophie. I feel like Kay said it, though. It could have been
Yeah, I don't
a
think
bad
Sophie
type.
said that.
Do you want me to re-say it?
No, don't worry about it. I was going to say that I think, especially during Pride Month, I'm happy Pride, everybody, by the way, from us. We love you just the way you are and for everything that you are. Especially during Pride Month, I think it's important to talk about how homophobic this whole bisexual narrative has been. It's the most reductive, insulting, like now I really get what people are talking about when they talk about bisexual erasure. Just this idea that if you're bisexual, you're not an individual person who seeks out individuals. It's like, it just means that you want to have sex with everyone and you want to have sex all the
Oh,
time.
I
Do you
see
know
what
what
you're
I
saying.
mean?
Yeah, I didn't know
And
where you
this
were going for
idea
a
that,
second.
like, I mean, take Kay specifically out of it. But if Sophie wasn't staying with someone who definitely doesn't want to sleep with her and definitely isn't interested in her romantically, like, just this idea, first of all, that she was so ashamed to come out and that it was so painful for her.
Yes.
um that to me was the biggest red flag in their whole relationship, was just this, the way that he immediately went to, like, oh, so you're going to cheat on me with a woman.
Okay, going back to that, yes, that was a very reductive comment and it was nasty. And I don't know if he was taken aback by her comment or if, I mean, I think more likely he just views things in a unpleasing way like that. But I also think that we are dealing with wounded pride a lot with Rob. Rob feels like a very wounded
Oh,
pride type of guy.
completely. And the fact that, I mean, I don't want to reach too far back, but I just think in general, I'm annoyed that there has been zero course correction there in terms of, like, actually, someone who's bisexual or pansexual, or however somebody
Whatever it
defines
is.
themselves. Yeah, it's not this it's not about who you have sex with, it's about who you love, right? And who you're
I
attracted
thought it was
to.
about who you fuck, but I think it is about who you love. I think that's a much better point to take away.
Well, my sexuality isn't about who I fuck. I don't see it that way. Like that's not.
I was making a
Oh, you were
throwaway
just being a dick.
comment.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
I'll
I
try and
was
make
like,
a dickhead face next time. I said that too straight faced.
how would your dickhead face be any different from your normal face?
That's going to put a nice little balloon knot on Rob and Sophie. So we are going to move along from the vaguely possibly English to the vaguely possibly Italian, definitely not singing Sicilian songs family.
I was going to say, as our resident Sicilian correspondent, can you shed
Yes.
some light on whether this is in fact the music of your people? Is this something your Nona sang to you, or
So
perhaps when she was in the kitchen making fresh pasta?
she always sang songs in English about being Sicilian, sort of. No, I'm just kidding. She did not. None of this was real. I would say now. I will make the distinction. I'm famously from New York City, and my grandmother is, was a Sicilian ancestor person. She was not born in Italy. She was born in Brooklyn, but my Sicilian family came through Brooklyn and stayed in New York. So there is a different vibe to the Italians who went to the Midwest and are in Michigan and Chicago and those areas. Go check out Smothered if you want to go see some Chicago Italians. But this one is, I don't even understand what the song was. It had, the thing I found really offensive is there was no Italian instrument in that entire thing. It was just a piano. At least throw me an organ. I need an organ for or a is it an organ? What's the one
It
that you
is,
hold? It
yeah.
is. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Haven't you traveled through Western Europe and heard the Godfather theme constantly on repeat by
Of
buskers with
course.
organs?
In a few years, there was a pandemic in between.
I don't even have to I promise you that if you set a timer for like half an hour, just giving me a chance to get on a train and get into like the middle of the city, I could find the someone playing the Godfather theme on an accordion in seconds.
I will
It's
say that
everywhere.
growing up in New York, there was never the Godfather song played on any by any outdoor performing musician. So this is a European phenomena.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of Christmas is the worst, obviously, because I really like busking. I think it's a fantastic tradition, and the
For
buskers we
sure.
have in London are some of just incredibly talented individuals. Um, but we don't get a lot of original music, which is fine. There's a lot of Ed Sheeran. There's a lot of James Blunt. There's a lot of Adele.
So really
And
like multicultural is what we're talking about.
yeah, and there's a lot of the bulk of the instrumental we get that isn't opera, which is fantastic, or classical, I should say, not instrumental. The bulk of the classical music we get or close to is the theme from Cinema Paradiso,
Yes.
which very rarely you find that, but fine. The Godfather theme, and then uh the one that was like Andrea Bocelli and someone else that's like time to say goodbye. That one.
Conte Partiro.
Yes, very good.
You know what would have been more Italian than what they were doing was just a like, what's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter with you? That would have been more Italian than what they were doing. And okay, so now we're into Gino and Jasmine, and I just want to pick up with a quote from Gino, which is going to be, and this is not infuriating to your partner at all if you say this sort of thing, especially if you're sort of arguing already. You're not planning to act this way at the reunion, are you?
You're not planning to act like this in front of my family, are ya?
Which Jasmine replies and says, are you planning to apologize? Which sort of brings up the kind of picks up from where we left off last week. They rehash all of their bullshit arguing last week. Gino's very upset that he got shake smoothie on his shoes when she threw it at him last week. So we're really, I don't know that much time has passed in real time from last week.
Gino, way that they present the facts to each other as they understand them is so interesting to me. Like, yes, the arguments get repetitive and the argument style is really fucking unhealthy. And by the way, if this in any way mirrors something in your life, please seek help immediately.
Yes.
Or ideally, agree together to go to therapy. The one thing that you have to learn, and I'm speaking as someone who's on my second marriage, okay? The best thing I ever learned how to do was how to argue respectfully.
Everybody,
And
I'm going to second this, and I've still in my first marriage, but if you do not know how
always
to argue,
showing off.
Respectful arguing is very important unless you want to sort of be in a hate-hate relationship with your partner.
But back to, yes, and back to what I was saying before, Gino will be like, you took the smoothie, you spilled it on my shoes. Those shoes are only 2 weeks old. And I don't understand the concept of washing sports shoes in the washing machine, which I could definitely do. But I didn't, between my first wife leaving and my second wife arriving, I didn't clean my house. So that's how much I know about cleaning things. And she's like,
yes.
So he's sort of taking these little pieces of information and in fairness, he's sticking to the material evidence, right? Not the circumstantial stuff. Whereas Jasmine goes, I'm not going to do the accent and I never will. Okay. I only do white people accents.
Famously only does white people accents, everyone.
Famously only respectfully does white people accents. So Jasmine's take is like, you ruined my life. You left my children in limbo for 2 years. You've stolen that from me. You didn't give me extra time at the gym. You also want to control me. You're also very manipulative and cruel to me, and it's these broad sweeping things stated as facts. And she always starts with a kernel of truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
She starts with, you can be selfish sometimes.
Yes.
And you can be thoughtless and inconsiderate sometimes. And then it builds up to, and also you've ruined my life, and also you can't fuck.
Well,
you humiliate me, you degrade me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I just want to say, same thing there, same track of Jasmine as her argument style. And look, she's talked a little bit on the show about, having anger issues, etc. I'm not going to be an armchair psychologist here, but I feel like she loses a lot of her points though when she does make everything such a large, big, kind of like all-encompassing
I think so
balloon.
too.
Because specifically, like we just saw last week, and I think everyone who watched last week's episode would say, like, yeah, I mean, she didn't. That was not nice the way she acted towards Gino. He was annoying, but she got physical with him and knocking things on him. She kicked him in the balls. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people seem to have missed that, but she did kick him in the balls at the gym. But what I was going to say is that she loses it when she says that loses the argument a little bit when she says that last week's actions, 100% of it was Gino's fault. It was all his fault, and she wouldn't have done any of that if it wasn't for him. And I mean, come on, like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, you said it all, and you said it best. What can I say? Nothing except good job. And yes, you are correct. How do you think? Were you surprised by the way this all went down in front of his family? Because I was extremely surprised, and I was thinking, way to be an ally, cousin Michelle. Good for you.
You're talking about her with the pageant money comment?
Just with all of
Everything.
it,
Yeah.
with everything. Like I think Gino is used to going in and pitching no hitters when it comes to his family,
What, you saying that
right?
they look usually and give Gino the benefit of the doubt?
Yes,
Okay.
always.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he get as in I don't know if I have to explain baseball to you.
No, but maybe to
You're
our
a
listeners.
you're a Mets fan. You don't like
Winning?
I mean, coming from a Red Sox fan, is pretty rich, isn't it? Um,
It is.
my
But yes,
people
what's
have
your
suffered.
baseball? What's your baseball analogy?
I'm saying he's pitching no hitters in that they will let everything he says that's bad whiz past them, and they're not even going to swing at it. You know what I
And
mean?
do you think though that that happens because do they just kind of like tune Gino out, or do you think there's never been much there in that regard?
I think that they are. Um, and I've known many Michiganders who don't have this kind of mentality, but I think that generally speaking, based on how they reacted to Jasmine historically, um, and Gino's first wife probably got the same kind of heat, and maybe the second time around they were only seeing his ex. Like,
Well, that's a good point.
they're the kind of family where it's like, oh, you have to prove that you're good enough to be a part of our family, right?
Right,
and
right.
and you've got to be this or that kind of person. And so I think they've always felt protective of Gino because they've thought forever, like, there's no way Gino's going to get these hot women. There's got to be something else going on, an ulterior
Something else
motive.
attached to it. It can't just be,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think he's used to coming in there and having an attitude in common of, as Jasmine said herself, look at this woman I rescued, in air quotes, from a, in air quotes, third world country, who
Yes.
is so blessed to be in Canton, Michigan, but that was not the
Blessed.
vibe. And when he was looking for validation from his family, it was the total opposite. It was like, yeah, you do owe this to her. Actually, she has given up her life and time with her children, and her mother who is now sick with you. And the least, and also, Gino, for somebody who wants a kid so bad, if you're tired from driving her to the gym once a day,
Oh my God. Oof.
I've got fucking news for you.
Well, but see, this brings up a different point, which I wonder how much Gino really is thinking about anything, because he's okay. This is like a little bit of a different take that I've had on Gino tonight. In the past, I don't know, like I kind of sometimes think he's just sort of a, just sort of like a schmuck, like he's not a bad guy. He's just kind of nothing. He's too wishy-washy. But
Yeah,
the thing is, so Jasmine says that she takes care of the cleaning and the cooking and everything, and
I believe all of that
so do I,
100%.
and so do I. And the point I want to make is that I as a man, and I do keep things clean myself, but I have plenty of friends who don't, especially when they have been single or something, is, and tell me if you think I'm way off here, but I feel like Gino's the type of guy who doesn't really appreciate what Jasmine's doing, because when it's not like a big difference to him when she wasn't living with him and there were rings in the toilet and dust and dirt everywhere. I feel like he didn't look at any of that. He just saw his chair, his Hungry Man dinners, and his TV. And so I feel like he's one of those guys who like doesn't appreciate what she's doing for him, because he's like, well, I don't really care. If I wanted to do it, I could do it. But he didn't do it when he was alone. Do you know what I mean?
He couldn't even flush
Fucking
the
gross,
toilet
dude.
before that's something that I like. I don't think I've been told from very reliable sources that Gino is very charming in person, that he's even handsome,
Mm-hmm.
and that when you meet him in person you can see the attraction. All I have in my head is you made zero attempt and you left a fucking unbroken log in there for your beautiful fiance who
So gross. So gross.
it's so inconsiderate. It's the ultimate, right? Like that's like what bad people do when they break into your house is they like no, I mean, I'm serious. Like my mom when she was
I've
younger.
never heard this before.
Have you not?
No.
I'm really interested. Come at me because it uh so my mom was burgled in DC when she lived with housemates, and they defecated in her bathtub. And this is a common thing apparently. I've read about it and heard it in other places. It's a common thing.
But aren't you leaving behind evidence that could be traced back to you? Versus, just saying.
Do you think at the height of the crack epidemic in Washington D.C. in the 70s they were
There
looking at
were
like
there were fecal monitor stations on every corner in the 80s. Oh, you have a good point. You have a good point. I'm just, yes, okay, fair. Let's make
and
the distinction.
probably the likely situation was the police came to their house, if they even called the police. I don't know if they even bothered, because I think the police came to their house and were like, yep, here's a bunch of women complaining about getting
Shit in the
burgled and
bathtub.
there's their jewelry being stolen, and I'm not cleaning that up.
Do have to bring up that, okay, so Jasmine has a histrionic sauna.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say that because here is, apart from, this is a green card play, fam. This was the quote of the night here, which was, and I'm this quote's gross, and you can talk about the quote, but I have more to say about this beyond the quote. But it was, Jasmine kept saying that she does not care about how anyone views her except her mother, because she, quote, came into this world through her vagina and that fucking hurts, end quote. What is that? What is that in this context?
Maybe it's lost in translation.
Hey, I'm
I
open. If
wasn't
you can give me a better interpretation, please.
I don't know why she reached for that particularly. Like my mom had to have an emergency C-section because I showed up 3 weeks early and she couldn't, because of other health problems that I won't go into because it's her business. My mother wouldn't have survived a vaginal birth. So, I have a lot of respect for my mother because of what she went through to have me, like
Of course, no, 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 and that's, I'm not poking holes at her comment there. Of course, we should all be extraordinarily grateful to our mothers for going through the pains of labor for us to be here. But I'm talking more about not so much what she said, but like the first part of the comment, which was that she doesn't care how anyone views her except her mother. You go into the world, you move to a different country. In my opinion, you sure as hell better care how other people view you. I'm not saying it should be paramount or control you, but do you think this is an exaggerated comment from her, or do you believe that she means it just as she said it?
Put it to you this way. Your comment kind of jarred me a little bit because for me there's a cognitive dissonance between, and we see this a lot, of course, between extolling the virtues of America, one of which is we've got freedom coming out the eyeballs. Like, if you want to be free, this is your place to be free. This is your place to be yourself. This is your place to be who you are. So, on the one hand, yeah, if I'm Jasmine and I'm coming to the US, I'm going to want that freedom to not give a shit what anybody thinks. But one of the sort of, it's a double-edged sword is the wrong word. So, but it's, I don't know how to describe what this is apart from cognitive dissonance. So you have, yes, America, freedom of expression, doesn't matter what anyone thinks, blah, blah, blah. But we're puritanical, we are judgy, we are a majority Christian nation, we are, we have strong identity politics. So, uh, fine, have your freedom, but it comes with a whole lot of caveats and judgment.
And you're right, and you have a good point there. You took it in a little bit of a different direction than I took it, because I was not talking about American freedom, and I know that's what you feel that's what she meant when she was saying all of this. That's the freedom she was
Well,
talking
perhaps
about.
you should have articulated yourself better, Jack.
So sorry. So sorry. I felt I articulated myself very well. I will say that here, let me see if I can make a little bit more sense of this. I just meant take the American freedom side apart. Sure, of course Jasmine's free to feel however she wants about who she should care about, how she's viewed by, right? But I guess I'm just saying it seems because the end of that quote is the rest of the world, fuck it. That was the end of that quote. So I guess I'm just saying if you're moving about the world, is it the rest of the world, fuck it, how they view me? Or is it not really fuck it 100%?
I think one of the greatest, I'm not sure. I'm going to be completely honest, and I don't mean this in a condescending or critical way at all. I'm not sure how that's different from the first time you asked me the question.
Well, I
So
was just trying
I
to. Okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, so I my response wouldn't be any different
Okay.
because to me that sounded like the question that you asked me in the beginning.
I just was trying to remove the American freedom portion from your answer, just because I
So
didn't
you're
hear it that
saying
way.
anywhere she goes in the world, is it important that she thinks what other people
Not
that
thanks, but
she
I guess, and here, maybe this is like an American perspective because I'm American, but like when I travel to other countries, I'm very cognizant of the quote, stupid American trope, right? So
Mhm.
I go out of my way to not represent myself poorly. And that's not to make my country look good, that's to make me not look like an asshole. And I just feel like it should be sort of important to not be viewed like an asshole or, speaking to your partner in front of their family in a negative way. And look, I can refute my own thing that I'm saying right now because Gino steps all over it himself in front of his own family and is the root cause of the issues.
Okay. So when it that's a very different area, and I appreciate you making the distinction. I'm the same way, and not as a, I don't think of myself as a representative of my country or anything, but I did obviously there, I mean, to give you an idea of how long I've been here, George W. Bush was president when I arrived here, and there was a distinct attitude towards Americans and particularly American expats that was neither inviting nor pleasant. So the next time you think like, oh, if this person gets elected, I'm moving to another country, be prepared to have people assume that you voted for that person, and then
even though you left when that
even though you
guy.
left. No, nor should you. I mean, presumably you haven't gone to Italy and been like, now, if you want real pizza, I'll tell you where to get real pizza.
No, I've not done that in Italy. Have I have maybe done that in the decade I've been in Los Angeles with our shitty pizza here. That is a possibility, but
There
not
was
never in Italy. Go ahead. Sorry.
the best pizza I have ever had in my life, and I've not been to Italy, full disclosure. Sorry, y'all. Was in Brooklyn, and this is going to sound insane, but it was spaghetti bolognese pizza.
That's very Brooklyn circa whenever you're telling me this. It's from.
Yeah, it was 2006 or something like that, or maybe 2000. No, it had to be 2006 because I could drink in bars at that point. So it would have been,
That is the
yeah.
era of interesting food concoctions in Brooklyn. But tell me how this was good because that sounds incredibly heavy and creamy.
Um, Normal amount of, so for me, and all of our listeners from Chicago are gonna flip out. But just remember, I'm one. This is just one woman's opinion.
She might be about to diss deep dish pizza. Let's see. Hold
No, I'm
on.
not. I'm not. I would
Okay,
never. I
here we
would
go.
never. My ideal is I want a Brooklyn style slice, right?
You're talking about a traditional New York pizza by the slice. You're getting a nice slice
Yes.
of pizza. Okay.
Yeah. That's the shape I want. That's the sort of crust ratio I want. I prefer heavier on the tomato sauce than on the cheese. I don't like cheese overtaking everything. And also, I'm pretty much lactose intolerant, and I just punish myself every now and then because I think life is too short. So, this pizza had a thin layer of mozzarella, um, over a perfect ratio of tomato sauce, and then uh the spaghetti noodles, it was like capellini, angel hair, just
Also,
very
thin noodles.
lightly
Nice.
mixed in with then the topping, which was, and again, I know it sounds heavy, but somehow it wasn't. It was only, like, think about like a tablespoon of bolognese sauce, maybe two at the most. So we're not talking like giant meatballs, we're not talking about like heavy sauce sitting on it, and then just the right amount of parmesan on top.
Now you've made this sound really delicious.
It was. And because, as I mentioned earlier, I never remember the real names of restaurants or stores. I have no idea where this
Have
place
you
is.
have you made up a name in your head for this place?
It was just, it was like the pizza place in Park Slope.
One?
That one.
You know, Park Slope, the one pizza place. It's
The
really
one
popular.
the one pizza place in Park Slope. Yeah.
Before we move to Gino's family, I have another question about Jasmine. And you and
Mhm.
I have chatted Enneagram a little bit. We've both revealed on here that we're Enneagram 4s.
Cuz of
Ja-
course we are.
Jasmine's penchant for needing to be contrarian to everything really read to me like an Enneagram 4. And I'm just curious, do you see her that way or do you get a different vibe?
That's such an interesting question. So uh I think there are Enneagram for sun people and Enneagram for like shadow people.
That would be the wings if you're familiar with the Enneagram.
Yes, of course. I should have mentioned that. Anyway, I don't know what my wings are. I have to look that up. Um, Other famous Enneagram fours besides Jake Anthony,
The most famous.
the most famous. You can have, there's the three of us, right? But then you have Robin or Robine Brown from Sister Wives, who's definitely an Enneagram 4,
Yes,
and
big time.
she is really heavy on the drama, really heavy on the victimization, really heavy on the blaming everybody else but me, that kind of thing. I
Absolutely.
think I think Jasmine, unfortunately, uh I don't think she's an Enneagram 4 at all, to be honest. I don't, because
Okay.
drama is a characteristic, but it's not the defining characteristic. And she's not iconoclastic enough. She doesn't her whole thing is like, I think Enneagram 4s, if they can help it, don't get plastic surgery, right?
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about it that way, but I would never get plastic surgery. So, I mean, unless I was in an accident or something, but I would not preferably get plastic surgery. So that's an interesting, keep going.
I'm planning I know I'm gonna have to get my eyes done because the eyes are like the star feature on my face. So I'll have to do that eventually when they start to drag. But I'm talking like that's my 60s or 70s. And I
She's
will
far
get,
away.
yeah, not as far as I'd like it to be. And I will get one deep plane facelift when, so you can't see it now, but there's a turkey neck merging, and all the women on my mom's side of the family have it, and I would not survive that. So
You don't want to go around going,
I don't want people doing that to me.
do you want me to stop?
Yeah, yeah, I do. So yeah, that's why I don't think Jasmine's an Enneagram 4, because I think she's so obsessed with, and same with the beauty pageant. Like,
Oh, of course. That's a really,
that's
really
not a
good point.
unique thing. It's almost
No.
like she's a slave to this ideal beauty in her mind. By the way, whatever you all want to do or not do with your face, I completely support that. I'm not in the habit of looking at women or men at any age and saying, wow, that person really could use this or that.
I will just
That's not.
say for myself, since I made comments there, I was only speaking about myself. Anyone else is entitled to do what they want, and I would not have any comments about it, at least to their
Well,
face.
you look at that's so easy for you to say because you look fucking 25.
How do you
You
know I'm
you
not?
s- you sound 84, but
Does that cause cognitive dissonance when you speak to me?
no. No. You've got a lovely, very youthful face and a great voice
Oh, do
for
you hear
radio.
this? Oh, shade at the end. How else could it go? Now, with that being said,
Wait,
because
we have to
yes,
talk about we have to talk about this porno thing and the sex thing in general.
we're going to get to that in 1 second. That was
Okay.
a little bit after. I just wanted to quickly just touch on Gino's family, who we've met many times now at this point. This was, of course, Gino makes mention. It's the annual family reunion, which is sort of funny because I feel like we've seen these
I
people
feel like
together
they
multiple
always
times a
hang out.
year.
Yeah. Who's there that isn't always there?
It did feel when he was introducing everybody, it felt like low rent Goodfellas, and it really felt like it was like, please meet Tony, Tina's wedding, and Anthony. This is the family. So it was just really stereotypical and just sort of a funny little entrance, and then we get that terrible off key non Italian song. We get Jasmine, very unhappy, but lets it go quickly that cousin Dana forgot to bring her vegan sausage to the cookout, which is
Oh,
fair.
cousin Dana's a man.
Yes, I know that. I was saying
You
she said it
said
to cousin Dana.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So cousin Dana forgot the sausage, vegan
Right.
sausage, and I thought Jasmine let that go. It was actually I was impressed with her because I'm giving her a hard time on this episode because she had a tough day, but I think that she actually really was pleasant to Gino's family, and I think And tell me if I'm getting too far ahead here, but just the comment when they get into Jasmine has some comments towards Gino, and then Gino could have ended the fight. And he makes it much worse in front of his family. I don't know if you agree with me on that. I'm referring to when Gino brings up why he doesn't want to have sex with Jasmine.
I'd love for you to recap it for me because I think it was so awkward. I
Did
know
you
that it
black out?
happened, but yeah, I think I
Well, what
passed out
happened?
there for a sec.
I'll give you
Dissociated.
I'll give you a refresher here. It was just so Jasmine saying her piece. We do cut to an ITM of Jasmine saying that she could humiliate him with his sex problems if she was to talk about them, which I didn't really take as a threat. I just thought it was more of a comment, like, "Hey, this guy, I think this guy's got some sex problems, and we don't really have a lot of sex, and whatever." And we know Jasmine is eat most of the time and would like to be on top of Gino all the time. It's so it was the comment where Gino says she is basically leaving it alone, and Gino brings up I don't have sex with you because I'm uncomfortable. And Jasmine sort of stops for a second and is just kind of like waiting for him. It almost looks like, really? Like, are you really going here? And then he says to his family, or to Jasmine, but out loud so his family can hear, I don't have sex with you because you make me uncomfortable with the way you talk to me. And he says, "See, your eyes are wide right now." And it was super awkward and uncomfortable. That's a private thing. It's a private conversation to have. It is definitely not a family Sunday cookout, annual cookout conversation. And I just feel like, I don't know. I again, we've heard such nice things about these two when they're in person, and all of that. So it's always a chance that some of this could be played up for TV, but this didn't seem played up to me. It felt like a real argument, and felt like Gino went a little too far talking about that.
I just thought it was hilarious when, and I can't remember which one of them said it, but the gall, the audacity to say there are things about, like, we don't need to bring up our sex life publicly. We also suck each other's toes on national television and talk about the fucking fish schedule or whatever. But yeah, that's not us. That's beneath us to talk about sex stuff. And it's interesting that the insults that they always go to when their fights get really nasty have to do with sex.
Now, of course, a lot of people have noticed that Jasmine's age has been 36 for about 5 years, or give or take. I do just want to point out, and she looks fantastic, and I'm not knocking anybody or anything, but I think Jasmine may have finally tipped that that age may not be accurate. She did say, I don't know if anyone else caught this, she did say that she was a teacher for 16 years, and we know she hasn't been one for at least about 3 years. So unless she was a 16-year-old teacher, I think we might have found something here.
Yeah, that math ain't mathin', but
A
whatever
girl's
she
got to
wants to
do what a
do.
girl's got to do, right? And
Yeah.
she's about to get off the hook anyway, because we get the comment that leads to the title of this episode, Pornocchio. And that would be, of course, when Jasmine brings up that she feels Gino has a pornography addiction.
Can I tell a disgusting Pornocchio joke?
Please do.
I think everyone's heard this one. And you can put your favorite Disney princess in place of whomever here. What did what did Cinderella say when she sat on Pinocchio's face?
Could make up a bunch of stuff, but you tell me.
Lie to me.
That's another great t-shirt idea right there.
Have you not heard that before?
I haven't.
That's an old joke.
Well, hey, it's a goodie.
Good. I'm glad I made you laugh.
Now, continuing along this line of the porn addiction, we get Gino's quick response, which is, "I'm not addicted to porn. You're a liar." I don't know if she's a liar. I think she might think he's addicted to porn, but I think that she's missing a larger point here, and this is my personal opinion. Gino seems like he's, which is interesting because he's married to one, but he seems like he might fear aggressive women a little bit. I don't know if you do agree.
Well, I think I'm just going based on experience I've had with male partners of mine. Not that I'm a bitch to anyone, and not that I talk down to anyone, but I've I've been involved with men who, in previous encounters with other women, were talked down to or humiliated, and not, in the setting in which one might enjoy being talked down to or humiliated. And it does, if you have someone who tells you all the time that you're a loser with no job who can't fuck, I think I think men are even more so than women. There's this myth that like any man can have sex, and or I should say anyone with a penis can have sex, and that it just happens automatically, and it's on, and that there's no psychological connection or emotional connection. That's simply untrue. It's just as
I
you
was just going to
you look like
jump
you
in
want to
here.
say
Yeah,
something.
no,
Yeah,
I
please
wanted,
do.
I just
Please
wanted
do.
to, this is an interesting area as a masculine man who's in touch with his feminine side. I can say it absolutely is connected because if, look, you need your parts to work as a man. And if your mind is elsewhere and you are someone who can get in their head a little bit, any sort of like anything that you find unsexy, and I'm not going to say being yelled at because some people like that, but anything you find to be unsexy or a put down and that doesn't do it for you, that's going to result in a guy possibly not being able to perform. And it's not a commentary on that guy's ability in the bedroom, it's his ability with a specific partner making him feel like shit. And I don't think we know Gino's not the most confident guy, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I think he does really well. I think he thinks too negatively about himself sometimes with the hat and everything. I've seen him without the hat. He's fine looking. He doesn't need to wear that hat. He needs to shave that hair off the back of his head, but does
Yes.
not he does
Yeah.
not need to wear the hat. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the point. Is there is a connection there? And do you think Jasmine gets that, or do you think she kind of misses that connection?
I think Jasmine has a very unfortunate outlook on this whole situation, and she's entirely focused on the wrong thing. I think that anyone's relationship to porn, and I don't know of anyone who doesn't have some relationship to porn. Um, yes, it can become a fixation that's unhealthy. It can, like any other addiction, it can cause huge problems and huge issues in a relationship, and anyone who's gone through that, you have my deepest sympathies. For Gino, I think he needs what I call comfort wanks or maintenance wanks, where you're tired but you can't sleep, or you're agitated in some way, or you just like you're horny at an inopportune time, and you don't want to put on all the bells and whistles of sex, and maybe you don't even like want to bother your partner, and so like you just do it. It's a release like anything else.
Absolutely. I can attest.
See, this is me and my male brain. I
It's
understand
really,
it very
that was really
well.
impressive. That sounded like a guy was talking just now. You're
I'll
very
take
in
that
touch.
as a compliment. And then of course there's the misery wank, which is the third functional type of masturbation, which is when like you're massively hungover, or you have the flu, and you just like you can't do anything else. You just need that like that bit of
Release.
time where you're not where you're not focused on how much your head hurts or whatever. So I think that she's overvaluing the time that he spends watching porn, and I think she's also, and I think she is way smarter than this, which really pisses me off,
I agree on that. Yeah.
because I think she's way too emotionally intelligent to honestly think that he's like having some deep fantasy about these other women. It's like these other women aren't people to him.
Do you think that this is like, because I feel like Jasmine has a penchant for this, kind of like going into her head and rotating the same story around long enough until it kind of like rankles her in a real negative way. And so she can, and then she explodes.
I think there's an element of that. I think there's also, she personalizes everything in Gino's life.
Yes.
So anything that he does, like having a misery wank or a maintenance wank,
Mm-hmm.
is going to inform how she feels about herself, and then therefore be an insult to her, when it really doesn't. It's the least personal thing
I
ever,
think
you
as
know?
a guy, yeah, I just want to say, I think you explained all of that really well. I mean, that's a lot of times when a guy jerks off, it's not very sexual. It's just for feeling, or maintenance, as you say. And I think Jasmine misses that point. And I mean, just my last comment on this is just, I could see a scenario with a guy like Gino where he can fuck Jasmine, but he can't finish because he just gets too in his head with her, doesn't feel adequate. And then does a guy do but go finish by himself, where he feels safe and not judged?
Precisely. And also, for all the toe sucking and what dressing up and whatever else they do, um in my experience, sometimes doing all of that can also cause problems. And if you, it's like with, Rob and Sophie, like, if you rely too heavily on costumes or role playing or whatever you want to throw in there, there's a danger of one person maybe feeling like that's a prerequisite, and maybe Gino is like, doesn't feel like putting the leather chaps on that day or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Absolutely. Your point here is that sometimes, and maybe a guy like Gino especially, but just in any relationship really, there's that fun time where you might dress up and do interesting stuff, but more often than not, you might just have a few minutes together and have a good time without all the accoutrements that go along with that. And I think, if I'm reading this right, I think that's also like you just touched on there, gets in Gino's head. I think he thinks he has to be some wild Italian stallion and not just like have sex with his wife. And when you can't just have sex with your wife, like, and you feel like there's something else behind it, that's not gonna, it's not good for the sexual part of a
no.
married
and
relationship
and
or any
also,
relationship.
like, it's not just an age thing. As someone who has, is married to someone 10 years older than me, and I'm not talking about him specifically, I'm saying I've dated men take Viagra and blue pills and things to help, like, way earlier than you think, for lots of different reasons. And
Including some, would you say, some mental reasons sometimes a guy
yes,
might? Yeah.
absolutely. Because of stress, nerves, anxiety, all of those kinds of things, it's like,
Yes.
and it's much more common now that it's so freely available,
Hmm.
right? So I think that physically, somebody who's been eating like frozen Hungry Jacks, not exercising, leading a predominantly sedentary lifestyle, sex is going to make him sweat. It's going to make him tired. Whereas Jasmine, who is in her sexual prime, and as you said, is in heat, it would appear 90% of the time, at least when there's a camera around.
Yes.
That isn't going to be a problem. That is a lifestyle difference. That's why, like, we were talking, I think last time, maybe in Love in Paradise, about dating 25-year-olds. It's like,
Yes.
when I was 25 and dating men in their 40s, I exhausted them. They were like, we had sex yesterday. You want to do it again? Jesus.
Out of here. They white fang you when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling that's not what I want to believe. That's not what drove them away, and that it was my terrible, toxic personality instead. But I think it was more of a case of like, it's cool having sex like 3 times a day every day for a week, but that's not something I can engage in long term.
Oh, you tired those poor guys out. And
I sure did.
I would say that with this relationship, it legitimately feels like every step forward results in 10 steps backwards because they're always in the same place.
Oh my gosh. Spot on.
And in regards to the fighting style, this was really evident this week. And I've thought this before, but this was really evident this week. Jasmine fights dirty, and Gino's trying to match her, but it's not in his nature. So he's getting very, very miserable with this like consistent heated argument style.
Again, imagine if they were comfortable being vulnerable in front of each other. And it has happened. And actually, I think one of the patterns that they fell into for a long time that was starting to improve actually was that, like, she would present her pain and her insecurities and anxiety without shouting, without crying, without a huge emotional display, when she was able to, when she could tolerate her distress. And for a very long time, all he would have to do is validate her. And he never did. He just would go straight into like, well, that's not true because yesterday you said this, which, like, can I just give a tip to anyone who's in a relationship? But also anyone who's in a relationship with a woman, like, if she comes to you and is upset or in pain or otherwise agitated, unless you're getting like straight anger and full rage in the face, just say I'm really sorry you're feeling so bad before you say anything else. Just, you don't even have to say that. Just say, I can see you're really upset.
Well, that is fantastic advice, and everyone should use it.
Thanks.
It's an easy way to not ruin your relationship. Just take that little bit of advice.
It's very disarming because, culturally and as a society, we don't get validated for our feelings. If we say, even to like a coworker or something, like, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, whatever, the sort of like, we all have critical parents or critical bosses or whatever, and we all have that voice in our head that says, shut up and be grateful, stop complaining. Or Lauren, that's her mom, constantly criticizing her, telling her she can't complain. A little validation goes such a long way. And it's often completely disarming to the point where maybe you don't even have to have an argument or a long discussion after that.
Absolutely. I mean, I have nothing to add to that. I think that is just an excellent piece of advice for everyone.
Well, if we've covered everyone, maybe it's time to close the show.
It is time.
We've spent a huge amount of time covering these couples.
You gave too much of an H sound on that. You got to say huge.
Sorry. I'll do better next time.
Try. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back later this week with a little more Love in Paradise discussion. And yes, go ahead.
And don't forget, $15 tier on Patreon. You tell us what episode of TV you want us to cover. My only caveat there is obviously we're in two different countries. So, due to copyright restrictions and whatever else, it needs to be something that I can also find.
But feel free to give whatever you want us to cover because we will check it and we will get back to you and tell you to pick something else if Michelle does not have access to it.
That's right.
And I'm going to say, to close this out, we're still working on a nice closeout, everybody, but I'm going to say anybody who is dating a man anywhere in the world in his hometown and he takes you to the local lover's spot, don't ask him if he's brought anyone else there before, because you know what? He definitely has.
Later, everybody. Love
Bye-bye.
you.
I love you.